Hello there. I've been asked to do a video on how to shift your Chevy Cruze like a pro. Just to show you how easy it is to shift this car, I'm going to shift all gears, well almost all gears, with just one finger. So let's go for a spin. On this Chevy Cruze, it's almost impossible to get lost, and I'll show you that in a minute. But when you're shifting, you always preload the stick. And you only do that for half a second. And you try and get your transmission loose. And you just pull it right out of gear and into the next gear. You always pause in between one gear and the next to give the synchro mesh a little bit of time to do its thing. And every transmission has its own timing. So this particular transmission is a progressive transmission. That means first to second is about a 900 RPM split, and then when you go from second to third, it drops down to maybe 500 RPM split, I think maybe 600. And then as you go up the gears, the split becomes less and less until finally you're in fifth to sixth, and that RPM split is only 300. So that's a real fast shift. So if you remember to rev match, which means first to second is pretty slow, and then as you get up through the gears, it's a progressive transmission, you progressively shift faster. So that's this type of transmission. I would prefer close ratio transmission because every gear is the same RPM split. However, GM in their wisdom has decided to go for a progressive transmission, and that's the way it is. And if you shift them properly, they will last the life of the car. So when you're shifting, you always remember to preload the stick. So if you're in first gear, you give a little bit of pressure on it and just pop it out, pause, and then second gear. Same thing with third, put a little bit of pressure on it, pause, third. So always preload the transmission and you'll get silky smooth shifts. Okay, so let's go for a spin. So you never ram out a transmission. Don't just jam it when you put it in gear, just very gently. And this transmission is so well designed you can put it in with one finger. And I'm going to be shifting with one finger. Normally I don't shift with one finger, but I just want to show you how easy the transmission is to shift. Now it's impossible to get lost in these transmissions. They're very well designed. To hit, you'll never hit reverse accidentally. There's a little ring on the bottom. You pull up on it and you got reverse. To get first, it's easy. Pull it out of gear and just put it right back in that same spot, and it will be first. It cannot be anything else. That is only going to be first. Second gear is the same, straight back, and you got second. You cannot miss. Third gear, it aims itself. Pull it out, and it aims itself. You don't have to aim it. You try and aim it, you're going to hit fifth gear or something, or back into first. So just let it go by itself, and it'll shift very well all by itself. Same thing with fourth gear. Pull it straight back, you cannot miss. You can't go into sixth, and you can't go into second, because it's aimed. There's a spring on both sides of the transmission. So just like that, it's got to be fourth. Fifth gear, you cannot miss it. You go up against the spring like that, and you got fifth. I've heard people say that this is a really long throw. I don't know, it doesn't look like a long throw to me. I drive a truck and they're really long. Of course, the longer your throw, the more control you have. I'm not sure why people want a short throw. At any rate, it's a short throw. Sixth gear is fast and it's straight back. Just like that. That's a pretty short throw. Now, sometimes when I'm downshifting, I'll skip right from sixth gear right into fourth. So all you do is pull it out of sixth and pull it straight back again. You got fourth. It cannot be any other gear. Just let it go right back and forth all by itself. Okay, let's hit the road. First gear. And second gear, preload. Third gear, preload. Fourth gear, preload. Is that easy shifting or what? Fourth gear, fifth gear rather. And here we go. We're gonna do, I never got up to sixth yet. First gear, one finger. Second gear. Third gear. Fourth gear. Fifth gear. Not one finger, but one thumb. And 6 gears, fast. Downshift. We always rev match when we upshift or downshift. First gear. Oh, sorry, I didn't do one finger there. Sorry about that. Third gear. Oh, 2 fingers, sorry. Okay, one thumb. Fifth gear. Is that easy or what? I'm not sure why guys are saying it's a notchy shifter. It's well designed. Now, if you beat up on it, well, all bets are off, but don't do that to yourself. 6th gear, fast. Downshift, rev match. Do another downshift. Third gear. This car has got a pretty low third gear, so you can actually go around a corner in third gear. Just like that. And the shift light comes on pretty low speed, so it's not hurting the engine. I mean, you can run it right down to idle in third gear and it's not going to hurt it. I'm running at 1100 RPM right now in third, and it'll pull very nicely in third gear at 1100 RPM. So first gear, coming to a stop again. Another thing I gotta tell you is you don't clutch until your RPM is down at idle. A lot of people hit the clutch and coast. All that does is waste your engine braking power, and it also destroys your release bearing on your clutch. Don't do that. You don't clutch until your RPM is right down to idle. I'll show you that right now. Okay, second gear. Third gear. Fourth gear. And I'm going to come to a stop and just show you. I don't clutch until my RPM is at 1100, 12, 1000. There we go. You clutch and take it out of gear. I normally double clutch into low gear, just out of habit. It's not necessary. I just double clutch it into first. All double clutching is you have your transmission in neutral, and then you, with your clutch out, and then you depress the clutch and just pop it into gear. I'll show you that again. So this is a double clutch downshift. That was a little bit rough. Normally I don't downshift at such a high speed, but anyway, that's basically how it's done. Now upshift to second. And we're going to make a U-turn here and head back home. Okay, drop it into third. Fifth gear. And sixth. The shift light actually came on. We're running at 1200 RPM. A little bit of a high gear for 45 miles an hour, 45 kilometers, which is about 30 miles an hour. I'm going to drop it into fourth gear right now. I got real slow traffic up ahead. And I'm running at 1100 RPM right now in fourth gear. And it'll pull quite well. If you're racing, of course, you want higher RPM, but I'm not racing right now. So if I want to downshift it, get a bit better acceleration. On the brake, no clutch. RPM is at 2000. You don't touch the clutch unless you're making an emergency stop. That's a different story. If you're on ice or something like that and you have to jam the brakes, by all means, clutch first. But normally, in normal driving in the city, you don't touch the clutch when you're slowing down until your RPM is down at idle. So here I am on the brakes and 1000 RPM clutch. And double clutch it into low. And here we go. Now it is true that the big split into second gear is a bit annoying. I would prefer a close ratio transmission. However, GM in their wisdom, or I could say something else, has decided to have a progressive transmission, and it's big jumps in the lower gears, and it progressively gets narrower as you get up the gears until fifth to sixth is only 300 RPM split. Now that's old school as far as I'm concerned. They used to do that in the old 4-speed transmissions. It's totally unnecessary in a modern 6-speed transmission. I don't know why they do it. I guess they do it because they can, but for an enthusiast, you really want a close ratio transmission. Okay, as I was saying before, you want to preload the transmission, and you want to get the transmission loose when you are shifting. And so in order to achieve that, you cannot be accelerating or decelerating, as I would like to demonstrate in this gear video. In this case, this gear is pressing against this gear here, and that's acceleration. So it's pressing against this side. When you decelerate, it presses on the other side. Either case is not good. So what happens when people decelerate and then try and pull it out of gear, what happens is the transmission will bind. You don't want that. You want your transmission nice and loose. So what you want is you want to see the gears right in the middle, right over here, right in the middle, loose. So then the transmission can just slip right out and come into the next gear. So that's how you get a nice clean shift. You accelerate, you preload the stick, and then you back off on the throttle, and it will loosen up like that, and then you will do your shift, and you'll do your next, and then you'll be into your next gear, and you can be accelerating again. So it's pretty simple. If you do that, you're going to find out that your shifts will be silky smooth. All right, I hope that really helps you. If you need any other help in being able to shift like a pro and have your transmission last for the life of the car and have happy passengers because they won't be jerked around or anything, your clutch will last a very long time. If you have any more questions about this, please give me a shout and would love to help you. Happy motoring!